You experienced sexual harassment in your career?
Oh, yeah, of course I have.
Talk Asia, Wednesday on CNN.
I'm Patrick Snell in Atlanta, and this is CNN.
You're watching CNN Newsroom live from Los Angeles. Ahead this hour, from search to rescue. A missing football team found alive in a flooded cave in Thailand, but now their ordeal is far from over. Plus, has Donald Trump's deal with the North gone south? A flurry of reports based on U.S. intelligence says Pyongyang has stepped up its nuclear activity. And back behind bars, again, a French gangster escaped prison for a second time with some help from above. Hello, everybody. Great to have you with us. I'm John Vors. This is Newsroom LA. Rescue divers in Thailand have finally reached a youth football team and their coach trapped in a flooded cave for the past 9 days. But getting them out will present some serious challenges, and it could take some time. CNN's Anna Corrin has our report.
Hello, thank you. How many of you? 13. Yes. Brilliant.
The moment divers find 12 boys and their football coach after nearly 10 days of searching. All that time without food and without word from the outside world.
You are very strong. Very strong.
Outside the cave, the sound of joy after days of agony. Families of the local football team, known as the Wild Boars, hear the news that their loved ones had been found alive. On the 23rd of June, after football practice, the team entered the cave, leaving their bikes and backpacks near the entrance. The monsoon season had just begun, and Thai officials believe heavy rain caused flash flooding inside the cave after the team had entered the 10-kilometre-long complex, trapping them inside. A massive search effort was mobilised involving the Army, Navy and volunteers, with up to 1,000 personnel enduring challenging weather conditions and mountainous terrain. Throughout the week, a contingent of international specialists from the US, UK, Australia, China and others joined the massive operation that had an entire nation praying for its success. From above the cave system, teams clambered through chimney holes looking for new ways to locate the missing boys. The pumps were able to drain up to 150,000 litres of water every hour. And in the bowels of the cave, Thai Navy SEALs set up a mini command centre just over a kilometre of where the boys were thought to have taken refuge. Finally, late on Monday, divers reached the boys, telling them they couldn't leave the cave just yet. First, they'll get some food and medical attention, and then equipment to help get them out.
Many people are coming. Many people. We are the first. Many people come.
And Anna joins us now on the line from northern Thailand. So, Anna, this search operation, it's now a rescue operation. What's the plan at the moment to try and get these kids out, and what time frame are we looking at here? What does some time actually mean?
Yeah, it's truly incredible, isn't it, John? This is not a recovery operation, it is a rescue operation, and people here in Thailand, certainly where we are in Chiang Rai, are celebrating. But you talk about that time frame. Just because they've found the boys, it doesn't mean that they can bring them out, despite one of the children asking the Navy SEALs, "Can we get out today?" That was an exact quote. The Navy SEAL said, "Not just yet." They've asked for 48 hours to observe these kids, so it's highly unlikely that they'll be moved within the next 2 days. Now, the reason being is that they need to have a full health assessment. Now, these, John, are very clever kids. They have been collecting rainwater through the roof of the cave, through the ceiling. So, you know, that in itself is a natural filtration. So they weren't having to resort to the muddy, dirty, polluted water, which was literally lapping at their feet. So they managed to stay hydrated. They haven't had any food, so they are certainly malnourished. Whether they're suffering hypothermia, you know, even though we're in Thailand and it's warm, it certainly drops overnight, and in a cave even more so. And these kids literally had their soccer gear on, you know, t-shirts and shorts. So SEAL Navy divers have asked for 48 hours to assess these children. In the meantime, John, obviously the pumps are working overtime. They need to drain that water, but that is a huge, huge task. As we drove into Chiang Rai, it began to rain. I mean, this is the start of monsoon season, and we are expecting the weather to worsen in the next couple of days. So whether they can continue to pump the water out faster than what it comes in is something that's going to be a huge challenge. But in the meantime, there are Navy SEAL divers with these children. We know that a doctor has assessed them, but of the Navy SEAL divers that are there with them right now, they're there to teach them about scuba diving, if they're going to have to get them out that way, teach them how to swim against really strong currents. It's a huge task that is ahead, but these children are remarkably strong, John.
Yeah, you know, they've gone through a whole lot already, and they're about to go through even more, I guess, in the coming days. But Anna, thank you for being there. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next hour. For now, let's go now to Jessica Tate, Public Affairs Officer with the U.S. Air Force, also in northern Thailand. Jessica, thanks for being with us. I guess, you know, there was this initial elation of finding the boys and the coach. They're alive, they're alive, they're alive. But now there is this reality of getting them out. What are the logistics here that the rescue crews are facing? Because it seems really hard to overstate just how difficult this will be.
So we're all following the developments closely. I think we're thrilled that this was such a positive outcome and that the boys and the coach are alive and that assistance is being provided. But like you mentioned, you know, this is a Thai-led multinational rescue operation that is going into its next phase, which is the planning of how to safely extract these boys and the coach.
Why not you get the kids in scuba diving gear and get them out that way? Because, you know, that seems to be the easiest and the quickest option, but some have said it's also the most dangerous.
I mean, all options are being considered. You know, the Thai government, they are looking at everything. And I think what's wonderful is you have a serious multinational rescue effort here. We've been here since the 28th of June, working side by side with our Thai partners and trying to be able to provide, you know, that assistance and advice. And really, I think what's been most beautiful is also seeing other international forces come here and provide support. So everyone is working so hard to find the safest way to extract the boys.
Yeah, the Chinese are there, the Australians are there, you guys are there, along with the Thai Navy and Thai rescue crews also. It is truly an international effort. I just want to give you some reporting that we're getting from Reuters about this complex that all these rescuers are facing. The cave network stretches 10 kilometres, 6 miles, into a jungle-clad mountain, and rescue workers believe floodwaters cut off the boys in a chamber. Rescue efforts have been dogged by rising waters while heavy rain has fallen incessantly. We also know that within that cave complex, there's different elevations. It's dark. It's very difficult to know exactly where the divers are at any particular point in time. So now that they know where the kids are, how difficult and how risky is it to try and get supplies to these kids, to simply just to go from the cave where the kids are to the surface every day?
So all those considerations that you just mentioned are being looked at. Right now, this is the planning phase. So Thai-led multinational rescue effort, and everyone is looking at all the possible courses of action, what is the safest, considerations to the elements, to the time, to the kids. So all those factors are being considered, but really we want to do this quickly, but this needs to be done safely.
Yeah, the next step, we're told, is a medical team, a doctor and a nurse with diving capability to actually go into the cave. Any idea when that is expected to happen? And what are the health issues that these boys could be facing?
Well, I definitely refer you to our Thai authorities to answer those exact questions on the health conditions and the timeline for the employment of the doctor as well as the nurse. But I can assure you that I know everyone here is working around the clock in order to make sure that this is done well.
Okay, just back up to the moment when you found out that these kids were actually alive, because clearly it had been, what, 9-10 days, and hope had dwindled. The rain kept falling, and then came word that the British divers had actually reached the cave and found the kids. Can you just relive that moment for us when you found out?
Honestly, it felt like a movie. And when you think about a true miracle, like kids being trapped in a cave for 9 days, you know, and all of Thailand being here. truthfully. I mean, you have volunteers, you have people giving their time, food donations, you have, you know, rescue agencies surveying the land, trying to find alternate entry points. You have folks cutting down trees, trying to establish like helicopter landing zones. You have continuous dive operations. Everyone came here to try to find the best possible solution to this, and to see a positive outcome and to see everyone come together, it's been truly amazing, and I have chills thinking about that moment.
Yeah, and there's still a lot more work to be done, but it's getting
Absolutely.
there, which is great. Jessica, thank you.
You're very welcome.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, Kim Jong-un spoke of a new dawn of peace, of denuclearization at that summit in Singapore, but the latest intel suggests something different is happening in North Korea. Plus, Donald Trump's former right-hand man makes his priorities clear, what Michael Cohen now says about his loyalties and what that could mean for President Trump.
Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here and the time is right for dancing in the street. It doesn't matter where you wear, just as long as you are there. So come on everyone, on your feet. Everywhere around the world, I'll be dancing.
This month on Going Green, meet individuals championing efforts to bring sustainable solutions to their communities and beyond.
Environmental issue for me that I really want to help solve is water scarcity.
Waste plastic epidemic.
To live in harmony with marine biodiversity.
Provide healthy, fresh local produce.
How do they overcome challenges to protect the planet? Going Green, Saturday on CNN in association with Kirloskar, enriching lives.
It's a metaphor for everyday life. What I would like to do is inspire other people to take on their own Everest.
It's a very unique environment to be in. There's a lot of emotion here right now.
I just feel such a letdown.
The journey continues.
I don't think I've ever seen anywhere quite like this. It's otherworldly. It's a bit scary here, to be honest. Today really was the never-ending day.
The Challenge Everest, Saturday on CNN. All new African voices. This week, for these artists, music has the potential to change lives.
Music is a powerful instrument when it comes to like addressing issues. It's very powerful more than any other instrument.
African Voices, today on CNN, in association with Glow.
The U.S. Secretary of State will return to North Korea on Thursday, looking for some details from Kim Jong-un about how he plans to denuclearize. The White House continues to put a positive spin on the North Korea talks, but intelligence experts say Kim still cannot be trusted and that his weapons program is actually growing. Paula Hancock joins us now live from Seoul in South Korea. So, Paula, over the past few days, there has been one report after another report quoting U.S. intelligence sources saying the North Koreans are stepping up their nuclear and missile activity, or they're trying to conceal that activity, or the reports have focused on a total lack of intent by the North Koreans to give up their nuclear arsenal. Clearly, all of this is not within the spirit of the agreement reached at the summit in Singapore. But is any of this activity in breach of the deal that Donald Trump made with Kim Jong-un?
Well, John, it's a very good question, because the fact is this Singapore declaration that was signed by both parties was suitably vague, so that it's very difficult for the US officials to say that Kim Jong-un is in breach of this agreement. The first thing on the list was the normalization of relations between the US and North Korea. Then they talked about trying to forge a lasting peace regime on the peninsula. And the third issue was about denuclearization. denuclearization. Not the word verifiable, which we had heard before, but saying that they will work towards complete denuclearization. And then, of course, number 4 was the remains of POWs or missing in action during the Korean War. Now, that still hasn't happened either. I'm hearing from one source familiar with US-North Korean relations that was one of the things talked about on Sunday when there was a meeting at Panmunjom, the DMZ between North and South Korea, between a US and North Korean delegation, obviously looking ahead to the schedule, the agenda for the Secretary of State's meeting, but also to question why even that part had not happened yet. John?
Also, the White House has announced that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will head back to North Korea. Is there a direct link between these intelligence reports and the timing of Pompeo's 3rd trip to Pyongyang?
Well, we have been waiting for some time for this, the exact time of when Secretary Pompeo would be heading to North Korea. I mean, certainly that the cynics amongst us might suggest that they're putting a bit more pressure on North Korea. These intelligence reports, the Defense Intelligence Agency, for example, believing that Kim Jong-un is not going to give up all of his nuclear weapons, that told to us by an administration official familiar with the report. But quite frankly, that is what every single North Korean observer, every single North Korean expert has been saying all along, that Kim Jong-un is not going to give up all of his nuclear weapons. So even though we're hearing it from a more official source now, the US intelligence, it's certainly something that's not coming as a surprise to anybody. John?
Yeah, absolutely. Paula, thank you. Paula Hancock's live for us there in Seoul. Well, for more on this, joining me now, CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican strategist Luis Alvarado. Good to see you both joining us here in the studio.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, let's just go back into the time machine. Just a little quick reminder. It was 5:56, June 13th, on Wednesday morning, when the President of the United States shared the good news with us all. Just landed, a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Meeting with Kim Jong-un was an interesting and very positive experience. North Korea has great potential for the future. So, Luis, it hasn't even been 3 weeks since the nuclear threat from North Korea was over, and now we're back. How did it all go so wrong? How do we go from no threat to now suddenly increased nuclear activity?
Well, I think for years we've seen North Korea is like a poker player. The more chips they get, the more chips they want. And they saw that they had enough chips to bring President Trump to the table and negotiate. And they came to an agreement. As we just heard, there was no specifics to what that agreement actually entailed. So Donald Trump and North Korea could call it a success as much as they wanted to, but in reality, the professional diplomatic corps knew that there was nothing going to come out of that. At the end of the day, it was a checkbox for Donald Trump. He still claims victory. He moves on to the next challenge.
Okay, Dave, get you a moment, but I want you to listen to Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, responding to multiple reports that North Korea's nuclear activity has been stepped up.
We see progress and momentum in the process, and we've had good conversations as recently as yesterday.
So even though Sarah Sanders and the administration would like to pretend that there's some kind of alternative universe out there where good progress is being made with the North Koreans, that doesn't make it reality.
Right. That's a great example of alternative facts from the White House. Look, the reality is I think Donald Trump either got punked, he got schooled, or he's in total denial.
All three.
Or all three, right? Like, bottom line, there has been no progress made on this. Like, they are still ramping up and accelerating their nuclear program. And the challenge is they haven't given up anything. They won. They elevated themselves. They had the President of the United States sit there with this brutal, murdering dictator. And at the same time, we gave up joint exercises with our close ally, South Korea, when North Korea hasn't done anything to show that they've got skin in the game and that they're willing to move the ball forward. So I think Luis is precisely right. Like, the challenge is, going into this, Donald Trump set up these high expectations. All these diplomatic leaders said, you know what, at the end of the day, they're not going to give up their nukes, and they're not. But that's the reality.
But Luis, shouldn't Sarah Sanders, just sort of come forward and actually say, hey, because it seems like the intelligence community is deliberately putting those reports out there to counter the narrative coming from the White House.
Well, that's the problem with this administration and their whole foreign policy strategy, is that nobody believes anything that they say, until it's actually done. And basically everybody's playing catch up. And that brings a little bit of destabilization to the world, and it's very unfortunate. But somehow this is what the American people wanted. They wanted to throw a wrench into Washington, and they did, and that meant that there was also going to be some kind of fallout for the foreign policy aspect of managing this country.
Yeah, we just heard from Paula Hancock in Seoul saying one of the problems with the deal, and you guys have mentioned this as well, it was just so vague and so, you know, broadly worded that it's very difficult to know if the North Koreans are actually in breach of anything here. You know, so Dave, is it possible that, you know, the self-described world's greatest deal maker actually struck a deal with Kim Jong-un that is so vague and broad you could drive an ICBM truck through it?
Yes, I think that's plausible. I mean, look, if you go back to the reporting, the fact that you have these undisclosed intelligence officials who are leaking out this information, I think really truly illustrates the fact that these are patriots, and they're trying to send a message that speaks volumes to the American people that our president is lying to you. There is no progress being made. The threat, pardon me, is still alive and well. And this is a real danger for the American people.
Okay, listen to the U.S. president speaking last month about North Korea's concessions.
They've already blown up one of their big test sites. In fact, it was actually 4 of their big test sites.
Okay, the problem, Luis, according to many experts, is that blowing up test sites is a high PR, low-impact concession. In other words, it looks great, but in terms of impacting their nuclear program, it's minimal because they can simply go out there and rebuild that site quite easily. So with that in mind, does it all start to add up that the president was played?
Well, you have to also understand that there's an argument out there that they blew up the stations by mistake, and it was actually they're playing trying to get both sides of it. We're destroying the site to try to be diplomatic, but in reality it was just an accident that they had at the nuclear plant. I think the president can say that he wasn't played because his base still believes that he did the right thing and that America benefited from him going to North Korea. And from a political perspective, as long as his base is going to be there for him, you know, through high or low water, that's all he cares about. And the only thing he has in mind right now are midterm elections in November. And whatever argument fits to make sure that he can keep control of the House, that's the only thing that's going to matter to him at this point.
And I think that's a testament to why it's so critical that we have an independent, free press. I mean, if you look at the coverage of this from the weekend, it wasn't just CNN and NBC and the New York Times or Washington Post, the mainstream media. It was the Wall Street Journal, who's controlled by Rupert Murdoch, of course. So, like, bottom line is it's right-wing and mainstream press that's covering this, and I think that's only going to increase if these test sites continue to grow.
And just that point, Luis, it seems to me that right now, if you look at the recent Supreme Court decisions, if you look at Republicans in Congress, the only institution that's left right now which is holding the administration accountable is the media.
It becomes almost a fourth house of power for the democracy here in the United States. And I, for one, have always argued that the press is one of the most important and probably the most powerful ones. And it became very powerful, and it's peaked in the 1980s and 90s. I think it's been hurt. It's been diminished because there's a segment of the population who doesn't believe anymore that the press actually stands for democracy, and that's very unfortunate.
It hasn't been helped clearly by what Donald Trump is saying, and just a little bit off topic, but the president apparently has refused to lower the flags in memory of the victims of the journalist shot in Maryland, which seemed an odd decision to make, Dave.
It's totally disgraceful. I mean, John, you served in the Middle East during times of war, and you risked your life, I'm sure, multiple times to go out there to report the news, both to the American people, but also to the international world stage, so that people know what's happening on the ground. And reporters do that on a regular basis all over the globe. And the fact that the president doesn't stand up and doesn't raise the flag, lower the flag, pardon me, to honor the work that those individuals did is a disgrace.
Okay, we'll move over to Michael Cohen now, the former fixer, personal lawyer to Donald Trump, who is under criminal investigation, has broken his silence, kind of. He did it over the weekend. It was off camera, but he spoke to ABC's George Stephanopoulos. This is part of what he said.
My wife, my daughter, and my son have my first loyalty and always will. I put family and country first.
And then he also talked about the FBI and the Russia investigation, telling Stephanopoulos this.
He said, I don't agree with those who demonize or vilify the FBI. I respect the FBI as an institution as well as their agency.
Yeah, Lisa, I found that last one about the FBI. I respect the FBI as an institution. I thought that was really telling. And, I mean, if you put it all together, do you think Cohen is about to flip?
I think he's advertising that he's for sale, that his loyalty is for sale. I think that he knows a lot more than the American people can even imagine that he actually knows. If you run in those circles and the way that business is conducted, you know, morality is not at the top of the list. When you work out of the New York, Manhattan Park Avenue area, and this, for Donald Trump to have confided in him so much, I'm sure that Donald Trump is a little bit concerned with actually information, not just about the investigation, but, you know, the plethora of other items that could come out to light under, you know, interrogation or when you're actually under oath.
Yeah, because Dave, you know, Cohen recorded telephone conversations. He dealt with Russian officials during the election campaign for Donald Trump. You know. And also, because a lot of the alleged crime which is being investigated by Cohen, the alleged crime by Cohen which is being investigated, I should say, it's state crime, which means that the president's pardon does not come into effect. The president can't pardon someone for a state crime. So Donald Trump, you know, how worried should he be at this point? Because we haven't heard from him.
This is the ultimate nightmare scenario for the president. I think Michael Cohen, I think it's clear that he is a game changer for the Mueller investigation, as is Paul Manafort if he were to flip, right? I think those are sort of the two heavyweights that Mueller's trying to apply maximum pressure with. The reality is you've got Michael Cohen, who you're right, you listed a couple of one of the things that he sort of did for the president. But, I mean, like things like the National Enquirer running stories by Michael Cohen before they were published, or being the fixer, right? $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, the hush money. I mean, this guy knows where the bodies are buried, and frankly, he's probably in bed as deep with Donald Trump as the First Lady has been for the last 10 years. The reality is there's nobody else who has the mix of the Trump organization, the Trump campaign, Trump's personal life, all intertwined together, and knows all of it as much as Michael Cohen.
Well, we have not heard from the president on Michael Cohen and the interview he gave to George Stephanopoulos, but on Monday they were talking about Michael Cohen on Fox News, and we know that from Fox News it's always a pretty good indication of what the president is thinking. Listen to this.
Certainly where we are right now is if he knows something that is so important and yet he's willing to kind of taunt the president by seeming to go against him, what does that say about this person as a witness? I mean, it gets difficult to even kind of see him as credible at this point. The one thing we know about Michael Cohen is that it seems like he'll throw anybody under the bus.
Luis, Cohen was a regular guest. They used to love the guy. Now he doesn't have credibility. He throws people under the bus.
Oh, are you for us or against us? And if you're against us, you're fair game. You know, the second that actually it looks like he is going to cooperate with the FBI and turn information, regardless of his associations with Donald Trump, he's going to be the #1 target. But everybody in Fox and everybody in Trump world is going to come after him. He's going to be diminished. He's going to become fake news puppet. I mean, I could just see the tweets coming from Donald Trump. It's going to be incredibly fun to watch.
Well, this is also reflective of the broader Trump strategy, right? They get Trump TV to turn on any Trump ally or affiliate. You know, Paul Manafort, oh, he wasn't really involved in the campaign. Michael Flynn, oh, you know, he only served in the White House for a couple days.
Jared Kushner just dated my daughter for a while.
Yeah, right. It's just like this is their playbook, and Michael Cohen is no different.
Right, and he didn't really say that about Jared Kushner, but I'm waiting. Luis and Dave, thank you both.
Thanks for the invitation.
Well, still to come, German Chancellor Angela Merkel showing off her political survival skills and reaching a last-minute compromise on migration with her rebellious interior minister. But the stability of her coalition government is still in doubt. More on that in just a moment.
of names coming in from all different parts of the world.
Your place to talk about the day's headlines. CNN Talk with Max Foster. Podcast available on iTunes.
To act upon one's convictions while others wait. To create a positive force in a world where cynics abound.
How concerned are you by the changes that you've seen?
To provide information to people just the latest when it wasn't available before.
We've now witnessed for ourselves that children are working here, that they are involved.
A whole new way of life this island has to get used to.
To offer those who want it a choice.
They also want to grow their economy peacefully.
We'll be witnessing history in just a few minutes.
For the people whose thirst for understanding and a better life, I dedicate the Cable News Network.
I'm Delia Gallagher in Yangon, Myanmar, and this is CNN.
Welcome back, everybody. Watching CNN Newsroom live from Los Angeles. I'm John Vors. We'll check the headlines this hour. Authorities in Thailand are trying to figure out how to get a youth football team and their coach out of a flooded cave. Divers found the group Monday, 9 days after they entered the remote cave. Rescuers are sending in food and a doctor to check on the boys' health. U.S. military intelligence believes North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has no intention of fully dismantling his nuclear program. But the White House says it's continuing to make progress in talks with the North. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo returns to Pyongyang on Thursday. President Trump's longtime personal attorney and fixer says he's putting his family and country first. Michael Cohen once said he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump, but in an interview with ABC News, Cohen strongly hinted he'll cooperate with prosecutors on his business dealings and the Russia investigation, even if that puts the president in jeopardy. Well, Germany now seems to be moving closer to resolving a political crisis over migration, at least for now. For weeks, an internal standoff threatened to bring down the coalition government of Chancellor Angela Merkel. But now she's reached a compromise with her interior minister. Under that deal, Germany will set up migrant transit centres along its border with Austria. From there, migrants who've already requested asylum in another European country will be sent back to that country, should that country agree. It's a little confusing, but we get more details now from Atika Schubert in Berlin.
Well, after 48 hours of intense negotiations, compromise at last. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel saves her coalition government. Horst Seehofer, the leader of the Christian Social Union, her sister party, and her interior minister, will stay on in his position in the cabinet, despite this political crisis that erupted between the two. And this dispute became increasingly personal as it wore on. In fact, Süddeutsche Zeitung, the German local newspaper, quoted Horst Seehofer as saying, "I will not be dismissed by a chancellor who is only chancellor because of me." A pretty dubious claim when you consider that the CSU only won about 6.2% of the vote during the last national election. Nonetheless, whatever the numbers, it does go to show how deeply personal Seehofer was taking this dispute. And consider that these are two political leaders that go way, way back. They've been working together for some 20-odd years, sometimes as adversaries, sometimes as allies. And this dispute ostensibly was about the migration crisis, but there is no migration crisis right now. It's more of a political crisis. Irregular border crossings have dropped by 95%. There are no queues of asylum seekers trying to get into Germany to cross the borders. However, that was the case in 2015 when tens of thousands of asylum seekers walked across Europe to get into countries like Germany. And ever since then, Seehofer and Merkel have been at loggerheads. It'll be interesting to see what her other coalition partners, the Social Democrats, have to say to this new compromise that has been reached. But for now, it does seem that Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel survives for another day. Atika Schubert, CNN, Berlin.
For more than a year, Andrés Manuel López Obrador has brought an anti-corruption message to Mexico. Now, as he assumes the role of president-elect, his election may be a sign of things to come across Latin America. CNN's Patrick Hoffman explains.
welcome to the revolution. For over a decade, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, AMLO as he's known here, has sought the Mexican presidency, promising to upend the balance of power in this country of nearly 130 million people. We will follow 3 basic principles, he says: to not lie, to not steal, and to not betray the people. The political elite that have long ruled Mexico are not just corrupt, AMLO told voters. They are, quote, a mafia of power, bleeding the country dry as everyone else foots the bill. Even though AMLO ran for president twice before, this time his anti-corruption outsider message struck a nerve with the public, catapulting him to victory with over 50% of the vote.
It's not just in Mexico where voters are challenging the status quo this year. In Colombia, Brazil, and Chile, voters will also elect new heads of state, and the seething anger that many here feel could transform the region.
In March, a corruption scandal in Peru forced the president there to step down. An epidemic of violence and self-dealing has led many Latin Americans to break with tradition and party.
I think it's because of massive corruption scandals. These aren't just petty corruption on a street corner and the police you're paying off. This is a complete collapse in confidence in the authorities.
And many Latin Americans are again embracing populism, both on the left and on the right. Brazilians go to the polls in October, where right-wing candidate Jair Bolsonaro has surged, despite praising the country's bloody military dictatorship, and in the past telling a female colleague in Congress that she was, quote, not worth raping. He was charged and fined. How populists like Mexico's López Obrador will get on with Donald Trump is now the open question. We will be respectful, but we will demand respect too, Mexico's new president-elect says. Mexico and its people won't be a piñata for any foreign government. Whatever happens next, Latin America's outsider candidates say it will not be business as usual. Patrick Ottman, CNN, Mexico City.
We'll take a short break. When we come back here on Newsroom LA, there are new details about that spectacular prison break in France, including how drones were used in the escape. Back in a moment.
Inside Africa, in association with Zenith Bank.
CONIFA's World Cup is not a World Cup in its popular sense, but it is a World Cup for the sport and its impact, how it can change and transform communities that are usually neglected by the bigger picture that is happening in the sporting world.
Matabeleland is a region that has got people of different backgrounds, different religious beliefs, and different tribes. But we are saying, let sport bring all those people together.
This tournament is about making good friends in the game and football, and seeing what football can do to bring nations together.
It is a football tournament, but for us it's more than that. It's to get our voice heard, it's to get our stories heard, it's to get our culture seen.
It's bringing us together. Hopefully we can keep that spirit going. Who knows what we can be.
It's a metaphor for everyday life. What I would like to do is inspire other people to take on their own Everest.
It's a very unique environment to be in. There's a lot of emotion here right now.
I just feel such a letdown.
The journey continues.
Staging I've ever seen anywhere quite like this. It's otherworldly. It's a bit scary here, to be honest. Today really was the never-ending day.
The Challenge Everest, Saturday on CNN.
New details now on the dramatic jailbreak by one of France's most notorious gangsters. This is his second jailbreak, mind you. Commandos apparently used drones to scope out the prison, before hijacking a helicopter. CNN's Melissa Bell has the latest.
Apparently filmed from behind bars. CNN cannot independently verify this video, but these shaky images appear to show the moments gunmen arrived to free this man, Redouane Faïd, France's most notorious gangster. France's justice minister says that drones were likely used for reconnaissance by what she described as an extremely well-prepared commando group. On Sunday, the group hijacked a helicopter and forced the pilot to fly to a prison near Paris. There, they staged a diversion, then smuggled the 46-year-old out of a visiting room before fleeing by air. Police later found the burnt-out chopper in an area northwest of Paris. The pilot was released unharmed, but in shock. The fugitive and his men were nowhere to be found. Sunday's spectacular escape is, shockingly, not the first for this criminal mastermind. In 2013, Faïd held 4 guards at gunpoint at a detention center in the northern city of Lille. He then burst his way to freedom, detonating explosives to destroy 5 fortified doors. A witness described the dramatic scene.
I first saw a prison guard walk by, followed by someone dressed in civilian clothes. He was holding the gun to the guard's head.
At the time, Faïd's lawyer said he was not surprised that his client had broken out.
C'est aussi un garçon qui est remarquablement intelligent.
It is also a young man, remarkably intelligent, and he is using his intellect to serve his ambitions. And I think he has so many years in prison behind him that he thought it was one too many.
The Frenchman is a self-styled modern-day gangster, often taking inspiration, he says, from Hollywood movies. He once wore a hockey mask during a heist like Robert De Niro's character in Heat, then brazenly attacked armored trucks and other targets. But for those who suffered his bravado, he is a real-life villain. The parents of a French policewoman who was killed in one of Faïd's robbery attempts say they're devastated by the news, according to CNN affiliate BFM. Now that Redouane Faïd is free and once again the subject of an international manhunt, his victims will have to wait for justice. Melissa Bell, CNN, Paris.
Well, it was more like basket brawl when Australia met the Philippines in a qualifying match. There was 4 minutes left in the third quarter of Monday's contest. There were bodies flying everywhere. There were kicks and punches. One Aussie player was hit with a chair. All up, 13 players were ejected from the court and the game was abandoned when the Philippine team was down to just 1 eligible player. For those keeping score, Australia won the match, the game. Thank you for watching CNN Newsroom live from Los Angeles. I'm John Voss. World Sport with Patrick Snell starts after the break.
With information moving at lightning speed, you need a news program to help put it all into perspective. We move fast to deliver in-depth world news and emerging tech trends, bringing what's next into focus for you. And that is Newsstream, the only international news program anchored from right here in Hong Kong, and we're happy to have you along for the ride.
Newsstream with Christy Lou Stout, weekdays, only on CNN.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. Welcome to CNN World Sport. Today, a little later on, we'll be looking ahead to the two remaining matches, the last 16 on tap at this thriller-minute Russia 2018 World Cup. And what was your take on, shall we say, the two sides of Brazilian superstar Neymar? We'll get to all that, but want to start off with Monday's pulsating match between Asia's last country in the competition, Japan, and heavily fancied Belgium. You know, the Belgian squad packed full of Premier League stars, but after a goalless first half, Japan shocked them twice in 4 minutes. Genki Haraguchi opening the scoring here, and the Belgians were blinking in sheer disbelief when Takashi Inui struck a long-range beauty past Thibaut Courtois for 2-0. But then, after just over 20 minutes left, the most remarkable of comebacks, Jan Vertonghen's looping header, which looked to be a cross of sorts, found the back of the net before Marouane Fellaini, one of two substitutes Belgian manager Roberto Martinez had brought on, levelled just minutes later. Still, both sides tried to win it. Japan's Keisuke Honda's long-range free kick deep into stoppage time, kept out by Courtois, but then from the ensuing corner, watch this, the Belgian keeper launching the most devastating counter-attack. Kevin De Bruyne powering his way forward, and with Japan exposed at the back, Romelu Lukaku selflessly lets it run through to the other sub, Nasser Chadli, in the 94th minute to steal a thrilling Belgian recovery and leave Japan's players and fans devastated, not to mention one very relieved Red Devils manager.
It would be very unfair to speak about the tactical approach of the game. Today is about the players, about the focus, the desire of wanting to win, and then doing it inside the 90 minutes was an incredible achievement that goes a bit further than the tactical disposition of the group.
Sensational match. You know, Belgium were quarter-finalists at Brazil 2014. They were quarter-finalists at Euro 16 in France, and now they're through to the last 8 once again. The joy among these supporters watching the drama unfold in Brussels, all too apparent. Joy and plenty of relief too, I'd imagine. Just look at those scenes. Incredible. Of course, the other side of the coin, I want you to spare a thought for Japan, though. The 2002 co-hosts were so close to reaching the quarterfinals for what would have been the first time ever, but they were really caught cold right at the end there. They have much to be proud of, though. All right, well, Belgium's quarter-final opponents, we can tell you, will be Brazil on Friday after the 5-time world champs took care of business against Mexico. The South American giants still bearing those scars from 4 years ago on home soil when they were thrashed 7-1 in the semis by Germany. Their star talisman, of course, is Neymar. He hadn't played competitively before this World Cup since February when he underwent foot surgery. And the PSG star breaking the deadlock shortly after half-time, his country's 227th goal in tournament history. And they're now the competition's all-time leading scorers. It was Neymar again who played a key role in Brazil's second as his shot is pushed out to Roberto Firmino, who makes no mistake for a 2-0 victory. How the win sparking scenes of jubilation for their fans watching back home in Rio de Janeiro as the Brazilians continue their quest for a first title in 16 years, and they hope a 6th crown overall. Still a long way to go, though. All right, the tournament had begun so impressively, hadn't it, for the Mexican national team with that famous win over 2014 winners Germany. But for some, the pain of defeat was just too much. Talk about drowning your sorrows. Look at this. You can understand his disappointment, though, and here's why. El Tricolor just can't seem to ever get beyond the round of 16, can they? For the last 7 World Cups, would you believe, they've been eliminated at this very stage. All right, well, with Messi and Ronaldo out of the tournament, it means the spotlight inevitably falling even more intensely than ever on Neymar. Remember, the PSG star, he is the most expensive footballer in history, but it seems he's not averse to a large dose of theatrics. Now, there was contact from El Tri defender Miguel Layún, but it's Neymar's overreaction to it all that absolutely lit up social media, and it also drew this response from Mexico's head coach.
I think we did control the game mostly, but unfortunately, and I think it's a shame for football, we wasted a lot of time because of one single player. I think this is a real shame for football, and I think we lost our style during the second half because of the refereeing. I think there were too many stoppages, and my players got more and more tired of that situation. There was a situation where there was a 4-minute stoppage. I think this is a very negative example for the world of football and for all the children who are following this game. This should be a strong sport. It's a man's sport, so I think there shouldn't be so much acting.
I think it's more an attempt to undermine me than anything else. I don't care much for criticism, not even for praise, because this can influence the athlete's attitude. In the last 2 matches, I didn't talk to the press because I didn't want any kind of criticism, because there's too many people talking, and some people get excited. I don't know if they're showing off. I just have to play. I have to help my teammates. I have to help my team. That's what I'm here for, and for nothing else. I'm here to win. I hope that I can always improve.
All right, well, Neymar's very much the talk of the town everywhere you look right now, it seems. Since his high-profile move to Paris Saint-Germain from Barcelona, there's been persistent speculation linking him with the return to La Liga, and now Barca's huge rivals Real Madrid have come out and issued a statement categorically denying TV reports in Spain they're trying to sign him. Watch this space. I suspect there's more to it. All right, well, later on today, 2 matches on the World Cup slate. It's a nervy waiting game right now for this Colombian star. Will James Rodriguez win his race to be fit as the 2014 quarter-finalists face England?
You guys excited back there?
All new African voices. This week, for these artists, music has the potential to change lives.
Music is a powerful instrument when it comes to addressing issues. It's very powerful more than any other instrument.
African Voices, today on CNN, in association with Glow. This month on Going Green, meet individuals championing efforts to bring sustainable solutions to their communities and beyond.
The environmental issue for me that I really want to help solve is water scarcity.
Waste plastic epidemic.
To live in harmony with marine biodiversity.
Provide healthy, fresh local produce.
How do they overcome challenges to protect the planet? Going Green, Saturday on CNN, in association with Kirloskar, enriching lives.
Welcome back. Later on today, the remaining 2 places in the quarterfinals of this year's World Cup in Russia will be determined. Just who will be joining Uruguay, the French, Croatia, Russia, Belgium and Brazil. The last 16 matches will be completed when Sweden take on Switzerland later in St. Petersburg before Colombia face the 1966 winners from England at the Spartak Stadium in Moscow. You know, it's over half a century since the Three Lions last won the tournament. Are they equipped to finally end that particular drought? Here's CNN World Sports' Amanda Davis.
Even as a notorious England cynic, with the way this tournament has gone so far, the way the draw is panning out, it's hard not to get a little bit excited, maybe even start to dream. But let's not kid ourselves. The 2014 quarter-finalists Colombia are going to be no pushovers.
You know, the thing I want more than anything else is for the players to continue to attack the tournament as we have. That shouldn't change now we're in the knockout phase. If anything, we should feel freer. They're gathering experience. We are the youngest team left in, and we're the most inexperienced team left in. But we've got some old fogies as well who help the younger ones to get through it and show super leadership. And everything's ahead for this team. You know, they're really hungry. They want to do well for their country. They're incredibly proud to wear the shirt. And I'm very confident that we'll see a really good performance tomorrow.
The big question mark for Colombia is over the fitness of James Rodriguez. He limped off after just half an hour of their last game against Senegal. And whilst they're saying the good news is that he hasn't suffered a muscle tear, the bad news for their fans is that, as you can see, he's not training with the main group and isn't expected to start.
The results of his medical tests, of his MRI that he has done, show that he doesn't have any serious or big injury, and he is recovering very well. We still have 1.5 days to continue following his progress, and as always, we hope that he will be able to play. It is normal that in England people think their teams are favourites. What we want to do is focus in on our skills and weapons and what we can do tomorrow.
Standing here, we could be talking about warriors going into battle, but at this point in the tournament, the only cliche being used is taking it one game at a time. Fans, though, are finding that quite difficult because they know that waiting in the quarterfinals will be a choice of team that not many would have predicted, either Sweden or Switzerland. Amanda Davis, CNN, Moscow.
Thanks, Amanda. Well, James will likely be given right up until the last minute, I would imagine, to try and prove his fitness for this match. Bear in mind, the 26-year-old who's currently on loan from Real Madrid to Bayern Munich was one of the breakout stars as Los Cafeteros reached the last 8 in Brazil in 2014. That, by the way, their best ever performance at a World Cup. And their captain, Radamel Falcao, says they're ready for the challenge ahead today.
It's a match we've always dreamt of playing since we were kids. Our players are already used to this kind of situation, and we only want to enjoy the responsibility, which means develop the plan we have as a team. And, like I said before, deal with the ambition at the utmost responsibility possible. This is a great opportunity that we have in our hands.
So will James win his race to be fit? Remember, he was the Golden Boot winner 4 years ago, scoring 6 times, but he's yet to score at this World Cup and could only manage about half an hour in that win over Senegal that booked the Colombian spot in the last 16. Do make sure you join us for later Tuesday editions of World Sport Today, all the very latest from Russia 2018. Thanks for watching. Do stay with CNN.
Hi, this is Jessica Alba. Join me this month on Talk Asia, only on CNN.
You may know her from the red carpet, but this Hollywood star is also a best-selling author and successful entrepreneur.
I feel like I kind of wear all the hats, and I feel good about that.
This month on Talk Asia, Jessica Alba on healthy living and her challenges in Hollywood.
But have you ever experienced sexual harassment in your career?
Oh, yeah, of course I have.
Talk Asia, Wednesday on CNN.
This is a whole bunch of bananas. Buried within it is an apple. How do you find what's been covered up? You start digging.
We follow the news as it happens and where it happens. And then we also take a step back to walk the viewer through the day's news. That's the mission of Hala Garani tonight.
For somebody to tell you their story, it's something I take really seriously. It's not something you can just parachute in and ask somebody to open their heart to you. To peel away the layers course, to get to the heart of the person who you're telling a story about.
France will never give up against the terrorists.
And delve beneath the surface of what's happening. You can hear their story. You're going to do their story justice.
Thank you.
You have to show yourself to them.
So right now they're hovering pretty low over this area that's extensively flooded.
CNN's the right place to tell their story.
The Cannes Film Festival, one of the largest international showcases